Hello, everyone. It's Friday, and it's another Actionable Innovations conversation. We're so excited to have a new guest with us today, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her and Springhouse in a moment. But to get started here, we're Actionable Innovations Global. We're a professional learning community that is focused on inspiring educators and connecting educators. So this is really meant to be a low-key networking event. So you get to know some innovative, progressive educators, and you also get to connect to those educators as well. So we are an online community. We meet periodically for these kinds of conversations. We also host virtual events. Our next one will be an AI conversation or conference in a few weeks. I'll tell you about in a minute. And you can find us. I'll show you where you can find us in a minute too. Our next event is an AI and education conference with a slew of really interesting speakers. There's a promo code for it, which is August EB, and here's the link to it. I'll put it in the chat as well. But this is our next virtual extravaganza coming up August 7th. You can follow us through Linktree. Linktree/Actionable Inno will give you all the links to our social media channels. We're not on Threads yet, which I guess is the new hot thing. But you can find us on Medium, Twitter, YouTube, and our LinkedIn group as well. So that's that. And I will post that in the chat in a few minutes. Today, if you're listening on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever you are, please introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us who you are, where you are, what you do. If you want to share your Twitter handle or your LinkedIn profile, we would love to have you connect that way as well. And you can also tweet out about the event using the hashtag ActionableInno. So let me skip ahead here for a second. We want to welcome Jenny Finn from Springhouse. And Springhouse is an innovative nonprofit organization and independent school in Virginia. And Jenny, we're so happy to have you here. And I didn't meet you specifically, but at the 100 Summit a couple of years ago, I met somebody from Springhouse. I think they did a presentation, and I was intrigued. So I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
That's great. And Don is has this thing that he has reimagined the Proust questionnaire that's at the back of every Vanity Fair magazine in the form of a one for education. So he's going to get us started with a couple questions that are not meant to be like gotcha questions, but questions just to have a little bit of fun with. And I'll post the link in the chat too for people who might want to look at some of the questions. So Don, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Lucy. Hi, Jenny. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Don.
Just some background in this. Going back to when we started this, I was trying to think what sort of questions should we be asking, because I'd done many failed podcasts and I was like, I've really got to figure this out. And so, I stumbled upon the Proust questionnaire, which is at the back of Vanity Fair. And apparently, it was questions that he came up with, and it became a really popular Victorian parlor game. And so what I've done is I've taken them, and of course I took it myself first, but everyone can see the Medium blog to see how I responded. But really, it's just a way of getting to know the person we're talking with in another way.
Oh, fun.
All right.
Fun.
So we'll do 3, Lucy, I think, which is usually enough. And for our audience as well, it'd be great if you could answer these and throw your answer in the chat. So let's start with this one. Who is your favorite hero of fiction, Jenny?
Oh God, I'm trying to remember her name. It's the main character in Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower. Is it Mina? I can't remember her name, but she's a teen, and she's like, it's during, it's actually set in, I think, 2024. And the book is about apocalyptic. It's kind of like the end of time sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And this is a teenage girl who is really writing about and living a new design that she calls Earthseed. And Earthseed is it's like, how do we live in a life-centered way when everything's falling apart?
Wow. I don't know that character. Now I'm intrigued, Jenny.
Oh my God. Octavia Butler is, everyone check her out, please.
Okay.
She's no longer with us on the planet, but quite the visionary of our time.
And she's a science fiction writer, it looks like.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a big Philip K. Dick fan, so I do love sci-fi.
Nice.
Anything like that, yeah. The latest thing I watched was The Peripheral. Have you seen that? I think it's on Prime.
No.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, if you're a sci-fi, it's all about it's about a VR AR com, but like a future Earth. It's incredible. Yeah. Anyway,
Cool.
really, really cool. The Peripheral. Okay, here we go. How about this one? What is your favorite journey, Jenny?
My favorite journey?
Mm-hmm.
Like a journey to somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
It could be a physical journey, right, Don? Or it could be a spiritual journey. It could be
amazing. Those tend to cross over for me. So I'm getting ready to go in a couple, oh God, I think it's actually a week, but back to Ireland. So Ireland is that where you're from, Don?
Yeah.
Okay, well, my lineage is from Ireland. My great granny Nellie's from Northern Ireland. And this will be my 4th trip where I'm going with the illustrator of the book that I just wrote, and we're going to go and do kind of a rando magic book tour.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but I love Ireland, and we're actually going to sneak in going to Devon, the Devon area in England, also to Totnes and some other places, maybe Bristol.
Great. Yeah, Bristol is a great city, very creative place, a huge music scene, and also the home of Banksy, is the rumor, the graffiti artist. So they believe.
Wow.
So there's a famous band that came out from Bristol in the 90s called Massive Attack. I don't know if you know them. And I love Massive Attack. Well, apparently he's in some way associated with them. That's it's a rumor, but that gives you an example of what that city is like creatively. I mean, the music that has come out of there, I think, is the best in Britain from that time. It's a whole thing called trip hop. But anyway, that's
amazing.
Yes.
So I've been there once and I loved it, and I met some random great people in a bakery, and he worked for this, I can't remember what it was called, but he was the director of this playground. It was like Adventure Playground or something, and it was set right in the city, and it was this big playground where all the kids would, like playground on steroids, where all the kids would come and play. It was incredible. And I remember just being completely blown away. We stayed there for a night with them.
Yeah, because, we often see creativity coming from the capital or the big metropolis, usually London, right? Or New York or wherever. You do have other cities that for some reason you get so much creativity there. It's not everyone, but Bristol is one of those. So,
Amazing. Awesome. Where are you from in Ireland, real quick?
So I'm from Cork, the very, very south. And I call Cork the California of Ireland because it has palm trees, which people just don't believe, and all sorts of, because it's heated from the Gulf Stream. So it has a very temperate climate. And that's where I was brought up. And I'm a graduate of University College Cork, of others. Yep. That was where I did my bachelor's in chemistry. I'm a chemist. That was my first thing I did was work as a chemist in industry, as a drug designer. But
amazing.
I'm a long way from that. I no longer. Well, actually, I did teach a chemistry class this year that I forgot about already. To see what I did. I love Ireland as well. I think it's just like, even though I've lived in the States longer than I've lived in Ireland, but I do still, I still have a lot of Irish friends, and it's a great place to visit. They are really friendly. I'm not saying that in a bias. They're very, very friendly,
I love it.
So that's great.
I can't wait.
Yeah, and it's serendipitous. Lucy, do we get anything on journeys from our audience?
In terms of journey, what's your favorite journey, Don? How would you respond?
I just love flying to different countries. So
and you're going on a major journey.
I am.
Week.
I'm going to Bhutan next week.
Oh my God. Amazing.
Yeah. To an innovation conference, Fab Learn 2023, but via India, you know. So I'll be in India for first 5-6 days and then on to Bhutan. And then eventually I will end up in Ireland this summer. I'll be there in August 8th through 14, I believe. I have that booked. But yes, it's a long summer ahead starting next Tuesday. But I'm really looking forward to it, to Bhutan. We tried to go there, my wife and I, in 2011 because we were in Sikkim in the north of India, which borders Bhutan, as does a lot of other Indian states. But they closed the borders because it was their first election in a long, long time. So ever since 2011, I've been wanting to go there. And this was the opportunity. So off we go on Tuesday. So yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, I know. So here we go. Last one, which always gets a good response from people, it seems to be. Which words or phrases do you most overuse?
Overuse. Can I still love the phrase?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Life is a gift. Take care of it.
Great.
I love that. And that's a reminder for me.
Constant.
That's a reminder for me. I'm going on a journey this weekend or this next week to a friend of my husband's passed away in January by suicide. And we're going to wrap up his estate. My husband's executor of the estate. So I wish I could say that to him now. He went through some struggles for a long time, and life is a gift, and so that resonates with me. The other thing, Jenny, looking at your work, I've also just before I forget this, I think your organization would be in synergy with a group that I'm doing some consulting for, which is the Charter for Compassion. Do you know about them at all?
I can't remember if you connected me with them. Someone did, but we did a little messaging, me and whoever is the director there, and I think we maybe lost our way. I mean, like with each other.
I'll get you reconnected again.
Okay.
The woman who's the executive director, was the supervisor of my student teaching program. They're like 30 years ago, and it's the outcrop. It's the Karen Armstrong who won the TED Prize a number of years ago. This is her TED wish that she got from that funding. And so Marilyn runs it, but it's Karen Armstrong's,
the author.
Baby. She's a religious.
Yes. I read her books in my, I think maybe 30s. I can't remember that big. There was one then that was really, I loved it, and I can't remember what the name of it was.
Yeah. So she's great. So anyway, it just feels like what you're up to. I'm going to take away the slides because we don't need them. It's more fun to see each of you. It's an organization I think that it seems in synergy with the same kinds of values and design principles. So tell us a little bit about Springhouse, and then we'll go from there. Just give us the overview of how you started this organization, what it does, and your philosophy of education. We'd love to hear that story.
Amazing. So thank you. And thank you for having me. I love those questions. That was fun. I could do that the whole time.
Yeah, they're good, right?
It's really fun. Yeah, it's just fun, So this work at Springhouse is in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. And God, it's absolutely beautiful out here right now. And it's been in existence for 10 years. I'm one of the founders. 2 other guys founded it with me. It more was like it was emerging, and then we just recognized it and we took care of it. And so it's still here after 10 years. That might make sense to some people. And this work is super personal for me. So the journey started well before Springhouse was born. I'm in my early 50s, And in my 20s, I had a crazy, extraordinary, actually, I was 20, and I had an extraordinary mystical experience that completely reoriented me and confused me. I was at Michigan State University, and I was completely drunk out of my mind, and probably on my way to leaving the planet. And something spoke to me within me and said to stop, put my drinks down. I'd never drink again. I've never had a drink since. And very shortly after that, I was diagnosed with a really serious cancer. So imagine all of that happening. Imagine you're 20 and then you're 25 and I have lymphoma. And
wow.
After that experience, my mystical, crazy experience turned into a call to service. And it was really, I didn't know this then, but it was around design. It was around cultural design. And what that means is that at that time I was being, after I did different things. I worked in hospitals, all kinds of stuff, trauma department. And I started recognizing, and maybe we can all relate to this, that many of the systems I worked in, be it the hospital system, educational system, churches, prison system, domestic violence centers, were suffering. They were not fostering vitality. They were not designed in that way. People were willfully just trying to make it through a day, and there was very little transformation to be found. So I found that in the systems that I worked in. And then what started to happen was I turned into a consultant, basically. It was like a vitality consultant, where they would call me and say, I don't even know how this all happened, but I would either speak at conferences or go into these organizations, and they'd say, we're suffering here. Like, we need a spark. We need a spark.
You're a facilitator of all that.
Exactly. Facilitating vitality through creativity. So awkward things that many of us aren't used to, like dancing, moving our bodies, painting, singing, telling the truth, this sort of thing. So people would come alive, right? There would be this experience where people would come alive. It wouldn't necessarily be happy, but it might be happy and joyful or hard or whatever, but it was honest. And then it would be great. And sometimes I'd be there one time, maybe 6 weeks, whatever. What I realized after that experience, that was in Colorado, was that what would happen would be the CEOs of the organization would call me later and say, that was amazing. We haven't experienced something like that. However, it's all back to the same thing it was before, like within a month. And I'm like, okay, this is a design problem. This place is not a person's life or community or organization when it's not designed to take care of the precious gift of life within and around us, including the earth. It won't stick because the culture at hand, either outside or within us, will eat it for breakfast if the new way is not taken care of. And the design is not such that it takes care of changes that are more in service to life over time. So when I left Colorado, which was another weird story, and landed here in Floyd, Virginia, I had a pact with the universe where I said, I don't want to go in and I have one life to live. I don't want to go in and just spark and then leave and then spark again. It's just not what I want to do. So I was finishing a PhD in education that basically was about, like, can we learn how to be friends with ourselves? Can we learn how to be better friends with all of ourselves so we can live with greater integrity in the world? It was in education. It was in sustainable education. I had no intention of starting a school. So
wow,
I started a school, and it makes perfect sense because education is how we create culture. So I'm more interested in creating culture over the long haul that takes care of life, and using education and using media to do so. So that means we have to completely redesign what we mean by education and service to a different end that won't happen for maybe 7 or 8 generations from me, maybe.
Yeah, wow, that's fascinating. But it feels to me that in light of it's interesting that I think education needs a redesign altogether. I don't think what we're doing is working, particularly in public schools. Independent schools have a little bit more leeway and tend to be a little bit more student centered, but they're not really redesigning the school experience at all. And Don and I are seeing in schools that we know kind of a reaction, a kind of a retroactive reaction.
Yes.
Let's go back to things as they were in many schools right now. And so we're like curious, when is the innovation? When is the culture, work going to happen if we really are going to change? It feels like we're kind of in education as a whole, that we're kind of at a standstill. So I guess my question for you is what does it look like at Springhouse in terms of the school that you designed? And then Don, maybe you have a question for her too.
Good question. So Springhouse is, like I said, our vision is to live in a world where all life thrives. And over the past 10 years, we have been literally innovating from the ground up, emergent design, toward the end of how do the people that leave this school, how do they go out in the world and build examples of thriving culture wherever they are? If they're going to school at Virginia Tech, or they're working for Habitat for Humanity, or they've just gone down to Mexico and they're learning Spanish. It doesn't matter where they are, but do they have the skills and capacity to create examples of thriving culture over time? Because that's what we need to see what's possible. We need examples of what is possible. This is why I love Octavia Butler's book, While Things Are Falling Down Around Us. So the example that we started at Springhouse and then later identified design principles from. So we started with practice. All this time have been practicing. We have a high school. So this is for kids that are like 13 to 18 years old. All of this whole thing starts with a deep commitment to staff development. The entire staff is committed to living our design principles. Then we share them with our teens who go through an educational program that we have articulated, rooted in ancient wisdom principles, living systems principles of the earth, and very little contemporary research around cultural development and how it starts with the individual and ripples out. So our whole approach, we're going to have a chapbook coming out at the end of the summer about this, is completely different. So if you walk into Springhouse, you're going to see mentoring as a core practice, passing down wisdom from adults to teens. Did we lose Lucy?
Looks like it, yeah.
Okay, should I keep going, you think?
Yeah, keep going. Definitely.
Okay. So you'll see community practices that take care of the life of community, singing, dancing, that kind of thing. We deeply value the community as the crucible for learning. So we take really good care of it. Rites of passage, practices that keep us connected. And then we also pass down knowledge that's different from what most of us are used to. So if you're going to go out and build examples of vital culture, which is what we want, that's our end when it comes to the educational model that we've defined. We want people to go out and build thriving examples. They're going to have to know themselves. So we spend a lot of our time strengthening our self-awareness, getting to know our strengths, our limitations, that kind of thing. That's a deep value for us. But you're also going to have to know the cultural context. You need to know the history of where you are. You need to know, like, the hidden history in particular. You need to know how culture evolves. You need to be able to criticize your culture from an informed perspective. All culture studies, basically, you need to know. And so our curriculum orients around that, and then also possibility. So self, culture, and possibility, those are the primary pillars of our approach. Welcome back, Lucy. So those three, like the knowledge, when a parent comes to us and says, what are you guys going to be learning here? Completely different. A parent has to be open to understanding that we spend a great deal of time on gaining self-awareness, culture studies, how culture is built, and then also possibility. And we explore possibility through the power of the earth and living systems principles, through the power of love and culture change movements, and also exploring the wisdom of limitations economically, our own will. I mean, it's a whole different thing that's hard to go into in this time. But it's all in practice every day. If you come into Springhouse, you'll know immediately that there's something very different happening there. We also have an adult program. So we have a program for community leaders, and which is very integrated into the whole school. So for school founders and community leaders who want to start thriving examples where they are. And we share our design through our source design lab first, so people can get a little taste, a little bite of it. We've had probably 150 people go through that from maybe over 10 different countries. And then we have very small cohorts in our 8-month program. Like we're interviewing right now, we'll have no more than 12 people in that cohort. We're interested in investing in one person at a time to start examples using source design where they are, and it's not a prescription. It's a guide. It's a guide so people have a lot of autonomy and creativity in how it's applied in their places. So, and then the other thing is the print shop. So if you're asking like, how does this manifest on the ground? High school, 8-month program for adults, and through our print shop. We have a letterpress digital screen printing shop where we put out media that has at its very core the message that life is a gift and it's up to us to take care of it. That's, if you dug all the way down to Springhouse, that is at the core of what we do.
I missed part of it. Sorry, my power went out for 2 seconds. But what's interesting to me is, a couple weeks ago, Don and I interviewed someone who.
That's exactly what I was thinking of, Andrew.
Yeah, go ahead. Take it from there, Don, because you've met Andrew too in person.
So Andrew Ravitch runs a micro school in Brooklyn called the Workshop School that I visited randomly a couple of weeks ago. And, I know a lot of people in the startup world because I work in the startup world of education, but for some reason, I'd never met Andrew. But what happened was he was on a panel at Teachers College, which is where I teach a graduate class in design thinking. And he was asking them, well, what inspires you? Because he's big into inspiring. And apparently students kept saying, oh, Don Buckley's class, it was inspiring. And so I thought, he said, I have to meet this guy. So I said, let me do a site visit. But when he came on the show, I said, so Andrew, are you ready to start a high school? You've perfected the middle school model and whole thing. And he said, no, but I'll partner with you if you want to start the high school. And his reasoning was that and that's why I'm so curious about your high school. The high schools in the US I've seen are driven by college process. And because of that, it is really, really hard to do anything, right? And Andrew's wise. He's starting a second school. He said, no, it's going to be a middle school. It's going to be based around design and entrepreneurship. And so it was really good. It was the first person I felt that like, oh yeah, we sort of know it's the college process, but Andrew was right there saying, yeah, because it's very hard to keep them going. So I'm so curious about your high school and how you battle with the college process and not make that determine what the learning's about.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh my God, you guys, I have very strong feelings about this. So I'm just going to take a breath. Very strong feelings.
Yeah, we do too.
Burn the house down. So I could burn it. You know what I'm talking about when a fire comes up and it's like, all of a sudden I could like ninja this thing. So, yeah, that's just not our focus. It's just not our focus. And I think that's just a symptom of a design that's gone hyper individualistic, doesn't know how connected it is to, we don't know how connected we are. We don't even know, many of us don't even have a connection to ourselves, let alone each other and this planet. So that the college admissions mania, which is insane in hurting our young people. And it's, there's so much of it that is just lies given. I've been working with young adults for a long time. And many of them holding them literally while they cry in the grief of, well, I've been told it's this thing, like the golden key to, I don't know. I forgot that Willy Wonka story, but when you get the golden ticket and you're in somewhere else, it's like, no, it's not. It's who you are. What's that book by, the New York Times writer, is it David Brooks, who wrote about, like, it's not where you went, it's who you are. God
Yeah.
forgive me. I got
I
that
think you're
wrong,
right
but
on that.
it's something, it's something around that. But
I think
we
there's
don't
proof in the
care.
pudding. I think there's proof in the pudding too
Yeah.
that process doesn't work. There was something I pointed out to Don a couple of weeks ago. LA Times had a piece apparently about how trade schools are churning out students that are making more than a history, grad from Stanford. And I can't see the article because it's behind a paywall, but they had people on CNN talking about it. The guy from Dirty Jobs, that TV show, has a foundation where he's funneling more kids towards the trades, which is not, again, probably not where you're going necessarily. You don't want that defined path. You want kids to find the place in the world where they're going to make an impact. It sounds like.
Right. And that they know how to do it, that they know how to do it. And it's all oriented around caring for life. So when they go in, they're like, they know how to do a vitality assessment, usually just in their own bodies, because they're connected to where they're like, wait, what's going on here? People seem really, like, one of our alumni came back because we have regular community practices. This is a sign of generativity. Our adult and teen alumni come back. They fundraise for us. They dance with us still. They come back. I couldn't care less about the high school I went to after I left it. It was like, donate to it or go back. What would I even do if I went back to it? There was no place really to integrate as an alumni. We definitely do. We have alumni come back and teach at our school. They come back on every other Wednesday night and dance with us as a community. And many of them, one of them recently came in tears and was like, oh my God, at my job, it seems like every single adult is miserable. I cannot find one adult who looks like they're like glad to be there. What do I do? And then another one I just took out for dinner. This is what we do. See, we're really connected to our people. I took somebody out to the Mexican restaurant, one of our alumni, and he was like, how do I take with me what I was at Springhouse for 6 years, and now I'm out in this crazy world, and I can barely hold on to my own health in this larger dominant culture, let alone make a difference. And I'm like, exactly. So what is really important to us, I've been saying this all day in our adult interviews, is that you come into an 8-month program or you come into a 5-year high school program, and it is equally as important to us. I don't even call it an alumni program because so many of us have constructs around that. It's literally like a cultural design practitioner program, because we want you to go out and keep designing toward vitality out in the world, but we know you're not going to be able to do it if you don't have support from a community that reminds you, yes, it's crazy out there. You got this. Strengthen yourself, go out there, and then also continued education. So we've had no staff turnover. We have literally had no staff turnover. Everyone is in it to not be an educator, but move toward building examples that move us in a different direction with culture. I don't know if that and we use education to do that. So it's a totally different, right? It's not for the individual. It's like, we respect the individual in our design very much so, because we trust that every single person is coming with an incredible gift and expression that will never be. It never has been and never will be again. So we cherish that, but in service to to the whole, including the earth. And that, unfortunately, is not the norm, and it's really devastating. Devastating.
Totally. No, and that's the thing, is like, high schools are designed to get students into college. It has absolutely nothing to do with learning, it's completely token.
It's insane.
And but there's so many things that you've touched on, Jenny, and I keep changing my mind because I keep writing things down. But like, the thing is, I say every problem is a design problem. That's where you start. Every single problem is a design problem. And, you're making me think, because one of the tenets that you mentioned was possibility. And I feel this is the thing that people have a hard time imagining possibilities. And that's what I always try, they have a really hard time. And I think it's because they're so caught up with solutions and not with ideas, which to me is the other point of clarification. Ideas get shut down, because people are jumping to the solution. I call it solutionizing. And I'm always struggling, but well, how do I? And I start to say, no, it's ideas, guys. No solutions to my students. It's ideas because, and we've, I have a good friend that teaches at Stanford, Jeremy, that Lucy knows as well. And he wrote a great book with Perry called Idea Flow. And it's all about like that. You have to have all of those bad ideas for one good idea. And that's very intuitive for a lot of educators where it's all about right answer, right this, right that. And I think I'm all of the last 2 years, I've been trying to get people back to, well, first of all, it's all bad ideas. You know what I mean? Like to get a good idea. So it can be anything. Imagine those possibilities for us. But, you know, I just think that's what we need in high schools is to like teach students to imagine possibilities, you know?
And I don't know if I mean, I've been working with adults longer even than with teenagers. And if we over-identify with our actions and even our ideas, we're going to be much more fearful of failure because we're going to think that we're a failure. If our idea is a failure or the action was a failure, this is, to me, I don't even want to use the word spiritual, but it is a deep, deep issue of worth, I think, in belonging. Some deep things that don't have quick solutions, but they definitely have symptoms if they're not tended to. And one of the symptoms is, oh my God, I have to do it right and I have to do it quick. And I can't fail. And that has not been our ethos at Springhouse, because we're rooted first and foremost. This may not make sense to some people, but it might to some. We are rooted in life. Life is at the center for us. It's like the very breath that's breathing through me is our number one value. We don't start a single meeting that we have without connecting to our breath. Oftentimes holding hands, always with inspiration, a song, a poem. I don't care if it's a 30-minute finance meeting, you're going to hear a poem at the beginning and you're going to hear a quick check-in. You're almost always at every meeting going to see a blessing of some kind, very quick. Like we go around this circle right now, we'd be like, Lucy, I really appreciate your innovation. And like, it's just something we do all the time. And it's become, when our teens leave, that's what they bring with them. Like when our teen, right now we have one who's working for Habitat for Humanity. I guarantee he's in there going, wait, why are they starting this way? Why aren't they starting with breathing? Or why don't they tell each other that they appreciate each other? And maybe they do. Hopefully they do. But I think for me, it's really, I'm interested in landing the ideas like a seed and then taking care of them so the idea becomes an example. But you can't even do that if you haven't given enough room for ideas to flow. I mean, and for ideas to flow, you have to feel safe in your own skin. And I don't mean to sound negative or cynical, because I'm not. But I've been in this work long enough to know that many adults they are wanting something for young people, God bless, that they are not living themselves. I mean, I'm going through a health crisis right now. You wouldn't know it because I continue on my thing, but I'm in hospitals a lot and I'm looking around and a lot of people, and I remember this when I was 25 working in a hospital. I mean, it's a healthcare system. A lot of people are not taking care of themselves. They're not. So how are we going to, even if we talk about a school, how are we going to pass down something that we don't have ourselves? I mean,
I'm wondering too, back to the core value of life. As a parent of a 20 and a 24-year-old, thinking about how often schools or even parents say, this is your life trajectory. What are you going to do with it? What does it mean? What does it mean to be human? I don't know if I've done enough guidance with my kids around that. And I certainly don't think they're schools. They went partially to an independent schools for part of their career, and then to public schools. And it was all about compliance. It was not about being known. It wasn't necessarily an equitable experience in terms of, the kids who were primed to achieve took advantage of lots of things, but the kids who had not kind of found themselves yet were kind of left to drift. And so they
Yep.
don't, my own two children don't feel particularly connected to our community, to our school system, now that they're out. They wouldn't be going back and visiting necessarily. I mean, there are probably a few
Mhm.
teachers and that sort of thing. And it feels
Mhm.
to me kind of empty and vacuous.
Yeah.
And they have had a better experience. Both of them go to Landmark College in Vermont, or one just graduated, one is there. And it's a little bit different because
Mhm.
they build their culture around learning differences and celebrating it, and not
Mhm.
letting
Mhm.
the kids feel like they don't belong. So I think that an
Mhm.
essential thing of talking about what is life, what is your life,
Mhm.
how are you going to uh, make the most of it, or use your time, your precious time on this planet in interesting and impactful ways. And then how do you create that culture of belonging? And I think schools are so
Yes.
um,
Yes.
so out of curiosity, do you do work? Do sometimes independent schools, I would think, want to hire you to come in and do kind of a cultural assessment or give them some advice? Do you do that sort of thing? Or is it more
Mhm.
your style to kind of do this deep dive program?
Both.
Okay.
I would say both because that's part of the media too, but also our educational offerings. And I'm seeing this question here about high school. How
Yeah.
many people are in our high school? So what is important to remember is really Springhouse is a prototype. We did not know that when we started it.
Yeah.
We did not know that. We just came together and took care of this thing.
Yeah.
But when you were at 100, I know that no Springhouse staff I've been really involved with 100. I was a country lead for 100.
Yeah.
But we've never been to the summit. So
Who did they talk to?
you heard someone who has been affected by the design. It could have been,
Okay.
I can think of 3 people. I can think of 3 people you
Okay.
probably talked to. But it's somebody who was affected by the design, because what happened is one of them who was at the summit, he's been with us design wise for like 3 years. He's from Kenya, and he literally for the first time just came to Springhouse in May. We've been working together
Yeah. Yeah.
through the design, particularly around building beloved community in the school that he's in. And he finally made it to Springhouse. See, this is what I'm saying, is that Springhouse is a place of inspiration.
Yeah.
And it was for a long time. And then people would leave and then we'd lose them. That's why the design really emerged. And now we have a design and we have a design program to support school founders,
Yeah.
community leaders, people in school, right? So it's not super important to us to have a high enrollment. And then the next question for many people would be like, how do you even then survive
Yeah.
financially,
Yeah.
right? Which I can talk about that, which is also a magical, strange thing. But the right now we have gone from 10 kids, high school kids, to almost 40, down to 20. I don't know what it's going to be this year. It's probably going to be somewhere around 20. Then we'll probably have somewhere around 12 adults. We don't want to be huge because we are interested in being a design lab basically at Springhouse. And so we're watching what's happening, and then we're taking the time to do research focus groups, inviting other graduate students, which we've had at least 4 come in and do their research to see what can we offer out there, and then how can we support those designers long term, like lifetime long term, to build examples where they are. So right now we probably maybe have 20 high schoolers, but the other question about residential is something we've bounced around a lot. We have had some kids come and stay in people's homes here. We're in a really small, vibrant community. So it's kind of that weird thing where somebody hears about it and they're like, I'll take them in. And then that person goes to Springhouse. And so, but we don't have a formal residential component. But what we are looking at is, because we're a cultural experiment, we don't want to just stay at adolescents and adults. We want to go all the way down. We want to serve all of the age ranges over time.
Right.
So we're likely in about a year to jump down to preschool.
Wow.
So that way we'll have a whole age, truly be intergenerational as we build up.
Yeah.
So we're not interested in like, we need to have 100 teens, which is just a different, so we don't see like low enrollment as as a lack of vitality. And you would know if you came to the school that that's not what it means.
Yeah.
It actually means a lot of depth and connection, but then we want to share it. We don't want it to just be here. We want it to be small and local and open and connected.
The other thing that struck me too earlier in the conversation, we were talking about Andrew Ravin at the Workshop Middle School, was that he mentioned that the parent piece, and the parents that opted to send their kids to his school were a particular kind of parent looking for a particular kind of experience too. They were open to progressive education in general. Is that how are parents finding you? How are they similarly minded and looking for an experience, or is it the kids that are driving it, the students? I'm wondering.
It's a good question. I think both, and some are having a problem in the public school or more conventional school system but that's not enough to be a part of what we're doing. You really have to be in alignment with the vision and the mission, which is to practice and share source design to create a culture that takes care of life through education, media, and a global network. Who's coming toward, like, think about our paradigm, right? It's like, what adult from my generation is coming thinking about a school in that way? I mean, they're just not. So a ton of education on our part, tons of resistance, misunderstanding, all kinds of stuff. But the parents who like really find us and then back us are parents who recognize that we are in an absolute, I don't know how to say this without swearing, but a cluster, let's say that, in design. We are in a cluster, and we need to build a new way, and they see that education is how we do that in a school. Like, a school is just a place over time where we practice a new way, and they can see that, which means it's going to be a niche situation that we're in, and then we'll support other people as they experience, and we do support other people as they experience what's happening there. They want to be a part of it in their own unique way.
So both the parents and the students have to be kind of aligned with your values and
right,
and that sort of thing.
Yes.
Don, do you have? So let's talk about the design principles a little bit. Can we dig into that a little bit?
Yeah. And this is what the book's about. This is the book that I just wrote and that we printed. So why do we have a print shop? Because it emerged, number one, just this year. You should see, it's down in this barn, and all these old, beautiful equipment that people have given to us, old letterpress printers. It's a magical place because media is how we spark and how we educate, right? So it's like we can throw things out that spark people's, awaken people to the fact that life is a gift and we need to take care of it. The spark is one part. Education is how we build culture over time in slow, meaningful ways. But media, ding, you see a little card. We make these things called cards to leave around.
Yeah.
And you might be sitting at the Floyd Country store having lunch, and you're like, oh my God, life is a gift. And now there's this QR code on the back. What is this place? Or another card says, the earth never lies. Great one. That came from one of our adult participants. The earth never lies. Or hold hands. Or what if you did? They're little messages. But then we also have much more intensive projects like books. So I just published a book that my colleague at Springhouse illustrated. We digitally printed it. We letterpress printed it. And we sold the first 100 copies. And now we make the books in the print shop. Students, community, staff, board members, we come and we make these books, and we have 400 now we're making right now. So it's on pre-order right now. And it's a book that I wrote. We don't write books that are more than 50 pages. So they're all chap books. They're called chap books. And that's a tradition from the 16th century. So that's not something we made up.
Yeah.
And it's all about spreading a message. So the design has 5 principles, and it all hinges on a desire to thrive and a willingness to change. We all are going to have to change if we're going to live in a world where all life thrives. Nobody's going to get out of that. It's all varying degrees, but we're going to have to change. And if we're going to change, here's the first principle. We need to take care of the vulnerability that comes with change. If we change, I know this firsthand, I'm guessing everyone who's listening, think about a time where you decided to stop eating sugar or maybe not criticizing your husband as much. These are all things that are in my life, my life zone. You're vulnerable. It's so easy to go back to the old way, right? Now think about a community and culture. It's even easier to go back to the old way. So you have to take care of the vulnerability that comes with change. So I won't go into that now, but we guide people in how to do that based on our own experience, not an idea that we made up, based on our own experience. Take care of vulnerability, cultivate your personhood, get to know your body, get to know a sense of joy, reverence, and the sacred. I don't care how you do that, but something bigger than your own self, and grow your self-awareness. Keep doing that, and we might have a shot at building beloved community, which is the third. To build beloved community means to respect individuality, which I think we can all agree we're not super great at as a culture. Neither are we good at fostering unity or taking care of relationships. If we respect individuality and we foster unity, we have interdependent relationship. The forest teaches us that. And if we take care of relationship, mycelium teaches us that, then we have a long-term sustainable beloved community over time. Fourth principle is to learn from the earth. About what? Learn from the earth how to build culture. Build an example in place over time. Learn how to sustain it, which we have economically, spiritually, physically. The stories I could tell about what Springhouse has attracted to itself are pretty beautiful and magical and even hard to believe. Build an example, sustain it, and then it will spread. Just like a flower going to seed. Last principle is to love and serve others. Many of us are not loving and serving from a very resourced place. And one of my favorite quotes is from Lilla Watson, who's an Aboriginal activist. She says, "If you've come to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you've come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." That's the world I want to live in. And if I'm going to love and serve others in that way, principle number 5, I need to learn how to accept reality. I'm not talking about approving it or condoning it. I'm talking about how do we stand with the cluster that we're in? How do we follow our call? And how do we keep going? So that's a cultural example. We also have an educational approach for school founders. Because if I give source design to my friend in Kenya, if he wants to start a school, the educational approach isn't really going to help him start a school. He needs to start a school, a cultural institution example, and then he can use the educational approach in it. They're two different things, but to anyone who's tried to start a school that really truly is innovative and different, most of the people I talk to, honest to God, they quit in the first year or two. They don't know how to do the funding. They don't know how to keep it going. So we want to support those people to keep it going. And then our educational approach is what to do in the school.
Are you, this is a tall order, and it's a tall order to operate on these principles in a world that is troubled right now. And in particular, the last, 6-7 years have been, we've seen that the symptoms really come, to the forefront of things. So I can only imagine what it's like trying to operate in that, and go against the flow of not great things. So and starting a school, I think I think it's a heavy lift to start anything that's different. And to building an airplane while you're flying it. And
yes, I say that all the time.
So it's incredibly difficult. Is there a consortium of schools that, like Andrew, the guy from Brooklyn, belonged to a consortium of progressive schools? One was Brightworks. I can't remember the name of the other ones.
The lab school, the portfolio school, which is now defunct.
Is there some sort of consortium of schools that have been seeded by you, or that you're part of, that is you know, because the reason I ask is that I think if young teachers hear this too, and know that there's schools where they can go where they're philosophically aligned and can be inspired by those philosophically aligned schools, it's important. I wish when I was a baby teacher that I had, you know, I felt like I was going into Chicago public schools and trying to save people, which was really not helpful to anyone. I wish I'd gone somewhere where that believed in project-based learning and interactive experiences and had been more to my way of thinking. I think I would have had an easier time and I would have been happier and flourished more as opposed to trying to fit into a system. So I'm wondering, I'm just curious, is there, you know, how do you do outreach to the schools that might want to kind of be influenced by your approach?
We are not great at the outreach right now because we've experienced a ton of magic where we attract things. Right now, as we speak, our part of our team is working on how do we get our word out to people who want to hear it. That's not one of our strengths.
It's hard.
So
it's hard for everybody. It's hard, and nobody really wants to hear things right now either. I think it coming out.
We don't even have that. I mean, we really have to develop the strategy for it because we're pretty bold in what we say. Even more importantly, what we do. So I would say if there's someone listening to this that's like, oh my God, okay, this is interesting. Then I would reach out to us on our website right here. And what I would say, or someone would say to you is do the Source Design Lab, which is full right now, but then it starts again in the fall. So then you go through a little 2-month little taster. You get to know some of the staff, you get to know a little bit of the design, other people who are interested. And so then from there is where like anyone in our adult program has to have gone through the lab in our cultural design program. So what I would say, and so let me also say that we would not be where we are if it weren't for the networks that we have been a part of. We are very much, and they would say this too, at least one of them would, we are really on the cutting edge of even those networks. And I'm not saying that to, we're special or what, it's just the truth. And so Education Reimagined in Washington, D.C., directed by Kelly Young and their team is, she's one of my real life heroes. And they believed in us from the beginning. The first year they believed in us and they kept sticking with us. And I really value them. And 100 has also been great. We've met a lot of people and many people have learned about through 100. But I think anyone who's interested should just go straight to the Source Design page on springhouse.org and also order the book. Go to the Source Press page and find your way down to the bottom to the shop. I think it's not the shop, it's the store. And you can buy the book there. It's so beautiful. It's handmade. It's really lovely. And it also tells our story. So those are some of the things I would say to people who are listening. It's not as complex as maybe it sounds. It's one step at a time. But we are creating a network of schools that are informed by Source Design, and those people stay connected and support each other. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think you're spot on about that. So I found the link to the thing that Andrew belonged to is the Progressive Education Network.org is that's the group that he belongs to. So tell us a little bit about Education Reimagined. Did they fund you? I've seen their work before. I've stumbled upon
They're not fund. They don't fund, but they network and they highlighted us. Gosh, I think it was maybe 4 years ago. They highlighted us as one of the 9 must-see schools in the country.
Okay.
Which was incredible. And then they've also connected us to a major national research project during COVID that highlighted us as one of 10 schools who were creatively and resiliently addressing community building and learning during the pandemic. So they've connected us to a lot of opportunities around research, I would say, and they have these 5 facets of learner-centered environment that we were aligned with since our beginning.
Okay.
So it's just good. And then we're also an accredited school, which is a miracle in the state of Virginia, the Virginia Independent School Association. So, you know, we'll keep doing that as long as it doesn't ask us to compromise our vision and mission. That's our most important thing.
Right. And that's great. So for those of you who are listening who don't know about 100, I think, Don, you're an ambassador too, aren't you? You and I are ambassadors for 100. And it's a Finnish group that showcases 100 innovations every year. And lots of the groups that we've interviewed or who have been partners with us for various things are part of it. And I was lucky enough to go to it, I guess, was it 2018 or 2019? In Helsinki, and it was really one of the most magical PD experiences I've had. You know, visiting schools, going to Supercell, and seeing the student ambassadors actually present and facilitate. It was great, and I think they've been doing it virtually and in person now. I think. So if anybody's listening, it's a really good experience. And Don has not been to that conference, but he's been to Finland, right, Don?
Yeah. I was in a lot of schools 1 week. I spent 1 week in Helsinki looking at everything from elementary to university, and why it's working there. Why is it working? Trying to find that out. And because I've been working on a program design for a new campus that's going to open in East Harlem in August. And that was one of the things I did. I went to look and do some research in Finland and see, well, what can we bring to America? What's there that I can take? And what was interesting, Jenny, was that there's a whole thing that you don't get homework in Finnish schools. What it is that they're given time to do the classwork. You know what I mean? So if you get it done, then you have no homework, which to me is a great thing. Why shouldn't you? What's wrong with doing homework in class? Why does it have to be done at home? And I
would also ask, what's it for?
Exactly.
See, I have design questions even before that. It's like design at its root means to shape.
Right.
What is the hidden design of this thing?
Right.
Because that's where I'm often, in all honesty, we're out of alignment with many things that call themselves educational institutions. Even if they're innovative, it's like, for what? We are all enculturated in an educational paradigm that I have to constantly do the work to remember, am I responding to old ways of being, or will this move us toward a world where all life thrives? And I think my last concern, my least concern is honestly around homework, around math progressions, around it's like, yes, we should be able to read and write and have some numeric literacy, for God's sake. But what about compassion? What about designing in ways that take care of life? What about all of the the climate crisis, the racial injustice that we face? These are my questions about how is education really going to, over the long term, address these things. And we have to massively redesign in order to do that, as uncomfortable as it is.
Do you find, just out of curiosity, have you found, I know we're over time, but so if you don't mind, we can keep going a few more minutes. Have you seen particular areas of the world where there are more compassionate schools, where they are schools that are more apt to think about seriously redesigning at all? I feel like the systems here in the US are too large and too factory model to enact, significant change at the rate we're going. I'm wondering if there's other parts of the world that you think are more open to it.
I have not, unfortunately. The people, and I've talked to so many. I was one of the country leads for 100. I talked to a lot of people. Nathan, I think Nathan Strange is still one of the country leads, who is one of my absolute favorite people on the planet. Plug for Nathan.
I don't know him, but I know who he is. Yes.
Oh my God, he's one of the most precious people I've ever met. And I think we're in a globalized problem here.
Yeah.
And as much as I see the problem, I know that life is what sustains, transforms, and regenerates anything that's alive. So these problems that we face are not too big for life itself to navigate through us, and we can get closer to our own lives, and we can, and then we can actually harness that to actually really generate what we need to generate. But it's so abstract until you're in it. But I can tell the symptoms of a generative. Well, I mean, I'm looking out at a generative design in the Blue Ridge Mountains here from the earth.
Mhm.
But we were accepted into this program at Harvard. It was like scaling for impact, and we were there, and it was amazing just because I heard some people really speak truth, which was great. But basically what I said at the end, I'm like, God, if we can't, I mean, these are little basic symptoms I want to see. Like, can we talk about death? Can we face death? Can we stand up and dance without feeling like a big weirdo? I mean, and by dance, I don't mean technical dance. I mean, just like move our bodies. Like, can we feel comfortable in our own skin? Can we speak to one another across and including difference? Like, these are basic
Clearly,
ways of being.
we haven't been.
No. And so I'm interested in creating a space where we maybe over time we could learn how to do some of those things, but we have to massively change what we're doing. Like
Okay.
I said, and it is easy, Lucy, to be like, okay, wait, is this even like, this is, when we were at Harvard and I was talking about Springhouse, so a guy raised his hand. He's like, so what's your, like, what do you want to change? And I said, culture. And he was like, I'm like, I know, it's audacious. And he said, that's one word I would use for it. And it is, but I'm in this for like, when I'm designing, I'm thinking about the great grandkids of the teens I'm looking at right now. I'm designing generationally.
That's visionary. That's being
Yeah.
a true visionary is thinking that far ahead.
I am.
And maybe that also gives you hope too, because you know that incremental change is how things go. And as long as we get there, how long, at some point. But I do think, I hope that, I think there's a significant come to Jesus moment for education right now, with the amount of teachers that are leaving the field, the way that they're being treated. And so, I think one partner in this journey could be schools of education who want to rethink their practices. I think that's one place we don't necessarily see in our world. Lots of schools of education that are particularly humanistic, but that would be one place to start. Like, what are we going to do? How are we going to confront the immediate crisis that's upon us with education? And it wouldn't hurt, to kind of go back. This reminds me a little bit of Summerhill, which I read in college. It wouldn't, and going back to that, progressive movements of the 60s and 70s. My parents put me in an open classroom because a school that had an open classroom because they believed in it. Maybe it's time to kind of recycle those things and come back to it, because whatever we're doing is not working and it's making a really hostile environment.
Exactly. And we can't be a reaction to what's happening. I mean, it's like what's happening is a problem, but being a reaction to the problem is still orienting around the problem. So it's like really having the capacity for deep listening about what is needed in a place and in a community. And I would say, if there are people out there, that it is the hardest thing that one will ever do, to create an example of school or anything else that creates the conditions for thriving in a dominant culture that has real trouble with that. But we have done this for 10 years. So in rural Appalachia, in a one stoplight town, and from the very beginning, when I was at a conference, somebody said, "You're crazy, it'll never work." And I'm just going to say, we have a story to tell, and we have support to offer. Please.
If I'm ever down that
come
way,
to our Printers Festival. We have a Printers Festival on October 7th.
Okay.
and it'll involve the school and stuff. So I'll let you know about it. But
Okay.
all of that will be on our website too.
If there's anything else that we can do to help get the word out or anything, we're more than happy to spread the word. Don, do you have any final thoughts or questions or anything?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for the inspiration, Jenny. It's
Thank you. Thank you.
I feel everything is about inspiration, and if you're not inspired, you just can't do much. And you've inspired us here for the last hour. I've sort of given up on adults. Lucy knows this, and I've cycled right back and just solely work with teens right now. But I've met two people recently that I've seen some faith, and that was Andrew that we interviewed a couple of weeks ago, and you. And I'm sort of thinking, oh, maybe I need to just surround myself with more people like this and not be so, pessimistic. Because I've worked in many countries with many schools, but I feel haven't affected that much change, But thank you for the inspiration.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, you reach out if you need a little pep talk, whatever. I mean, we need them too. So
yeah. So we had a couple people here today. I think Ann Flynn was here, who's from Virginia.
fun.
It's hard to tell who's here unless they say something. So thanks everyone for coming. And Jenny, let's stay in touch. And we're looking forward to following your progress. And I will reconnect you with the Charter for Compassion executive director, Marilyn Turkovich, too, because I think they have a network of schools too that are of a network of compassionate schools that might be a good connection for you somehow.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lucy and Don. This has been super life-giving. I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I'm going to end the broadcast, but Jenny, you can stick around and we can say goodbye. Thanks, everyone. On Monday, we have another conversation with Manoj from Nepal, I believe, and Julian Reen's going to be interviewing him about his sustainable school network. So if it's 9:00 Central Time on Monday, if anybody's interested, and then we're going to take a break. And then in August, we're going to interview Adam Layler from Landmark College, where my kids go, who's the director of research, and you'll learn a little bit about that higher ed institution. It's a really interesting place too. In a similar, it's in Putney, Vermont, so it's kind of similar to where you are a little bit. It's a neat place. Anyway, so
I know where Putney. My son went to the Putney school.
Okay, so you know the general store.
And I love Putney. Oh yeah, it's very similar to where I am. Cool.
All right, so thanks everyone for coming.
Bye everybody.